Can a lover go but to the land of his beloved? And what seeker findeth rest away from his heart's desire?
Thank you very much. Thank you all. To keep an eye on the screen here, I don't want to miss anybody coming in. All right, so this is from California. It feels a bit different. I see my wife from a distance and my daughter. So as I was mentioning, because I didn't want to transport my documentation from the Congo, I figured we'll do a parenthesis and we'll pick up the story of May Maxwell when I get back in 3 weeks. So today and next. So I thought that today we will talk about someone that we don't talk much about. And I didn't know much about her either, but she's quite a very key behind this world. And that's Amelia Collins. Now, they used to call her Millie. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read from a tribute written by Hando de Cos-Faisy, and then I'm going to read a tribute that she wrote for the Beloved Guardian. Two amazing documents. But on a personal note, before we sort of get into her life, she's very, very devoted and detached person. I don't know much about her life, really, from way back. Not even much about how she became a Baha'i. But before I get into the tribute and talk about her major accomplishments and how much the Guardian loved her, just for the record, although we often don't remember these things, her name was Amelia Collins. And she was born on June 7th, 1873, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Her mother, Catherine Grove, was born in the US, and her father, Conrad Engelder, immigrated from Germany at an early age and became a Lutheran clergyman. Amelia was brought up in a strict Lutheran atmosphere. She was the seventh child in a family of 9 sons and 5 daughters. She was the seventh out of 14. Excuse me, somebody's coming in. No. So her early married life was spent in Calumet in Michigan and Bisbee, Arizona, in mining areas where her husband, Thomas H. Collins, had interests. So after her husband's death, she sold her home in California and devoted all her life and all her means for the faith. Now, she apparently became a Baha'i through someone by the name of Mrs. French, I believe, in 1919, but no one talks too much about that time or her declaration. She just became a Baha'i. And all we know is that she was very devoted to Shawki Effendi, and that you'll know as we get into her life. So, Shawki Effendi said of her, "You are so precious to us all, and the unique asset to the faith you love so dearly, and have served so valiantly for so many years." So the friends who have had the honor and privilege of pilgrimage to the holy shrines, now this is out of the tribute of Hando de Cos-Faisy, may remember a slender, white-haired, very upright, elderly lady who lived in one of the rooms of the master's house. Her great joy after the passing of the guardian was to go to the pilgrim house. She often said that such visits to the dear pilgrims were her spiritual intoxication that kept her warm, made her soul happy, and her heart strong. She longed to visit the cradle of the Baha'i faith. Whatever was brought to her from Persia, she would treasure. To her, these tangible objects were spiritual ties to the faith she so much loved. She wanted to smell the roses in the Persian gardens and to hear the nightingales at dawn. She often mentioned that it was the desire of her life to go to Maku and see with her own eyes the fortress where the Bab was left all alone at night without even the light of a candle. Time and circumstances did not permit her to do this. Therefore, with an endless love, she would come to see the pilgrims. First, she would be settled in her seat. For a long time, she would gaze into their faces, smile as if rejuvenated by their presence. At their request, she would give them glimpses into her illustrious life. So what you will read in these pages is largely the record of these beautiful gatherings. So that's one of the advantages of reading Mr. Faizi, because he was a fellow hand of the cause and he participated in all these gatherings at the Pilgrim House. Millie, as she was called by the beloved guardian and by all her friends, began her Baha'i life with a degree of faithfulness, love, and enthusiasm, and never lessened to her last breath. Her first Baha'i friends in America had told her that she must write a letter to Abdu'l-Baha and beg for confirmation and strength. The night she heard this, she could hardly sleep. Till morning, she was contemplating how one should write to such an immensely great personage. At last, she scribbled something, and at dawn, when she opened the curtains of her room, as if for the first time she saw the sun shining in all its splendor and glory, giving light and life to all living things in the universe. She thought to herself, the sun shines on the world and all that is therein with such a grandeur and liberality. Does it need a letter? Does he expect us to appeal to him? The sun shines in the solar system and never needs any such superficial means of communication. Then she tore up her letter, and in her heart she was certain that the spirit of the beloved Master Abdu'l-Baha also would shine upon the world of human beings and grant them faith and love. Like the sun, he had all under his care and protection. There was no need to bother him with inadequate words and supplications. Let me just show you a picture. This is the only picture we see of her when she was much, much older. Amelia Collins. Anyway, so why no need to write? She said that days passed, then lo and behold, she received the tablet from the Master. She never showed me that tablet. She did not at first show it to anyone. It was a secret between the lover and the loved one and was sanctified from any kind of pretension. The only part she revealed to us was this, that the Master addressed her as Lady of the Kingdom. But we now know that in that tablet he stated his hope that she would be confirmed to erect a structure that shall eternally remain firm and unshakable. Millie first sought the presence of the guardian in 1923. Her husband, Thomas H. Collins, though not a Baha'i, accompanied her. They went to a hotel, but the guardian invited them to live in the Pilgrim House. There were several important incidents during her sojourn in the Holy Land, and the most significant were the following. Mr. Faizi is not writing a biography, detailed of her life, but she is quoting specific events in her life that she used to talk about. The first one is, he says, one evening, the beloved guardian gave Millie some papers and asked her to study them. As she related this incident to us, she explained that before attaining the presence of the beloved guardian, her sole aim was to learn from him some truths about prayer and purification of the soul and heart. She said, to me, he was a door to the world beyond, and through him I longed to have a glimpse of that wondrous world. Therefore, with great eagerness and anticipation, I hurried to my room, opened the papers, and read and read. The next day, when I saw him, his first question was, what did you think of the papers I gave you to read? At this point, dearest Millie always used to stop to tell us the following. I started my spiritual life on a basis of truth and frankness. Whatever I felt in my heart, whether right or wrong, I would say without fear of consequence. Now I was standing before the person who could read the innermost recesses of my heart and soul. How could I speak anything but the simple truth? Those papers contained nothing but explanations and elucidations of the world order of Baha'u'llah and how it should be established in the world. And I desired only to know about prayer and glimpses of the world beyond. Therefore, I could only answer the guardian's question with these words. What shall I say? I did not understand anything. Here again, she would pause and look deeply into the faces of the friends and say, do you think he reproved me for this? Never. On the same day in the afternoon, he told me that the master had walked often in these lanes and streets near his house, and the guardian invited me to go walking with him. As we were walking together, he spoke of nothing except the same subjects he had written about in the papers he had given me to read. But with what a voice and with what sweetness, words cannot describe them. He explained the details with such patience as a father would to a child. But my idea was still lurking in my mind, and I was constantly thinking to myself that soon he would speak the words that would each one open a door into the mysteries of prayer and the world of the spirit, which I longed so much to know more about. How can we, insignificant and weak as we are, understand the plans of God? We are confined to our humble and limited circumstances, unaware of what he may have in store for us. The guardian, who was beginning to delineate the spiritual foundation of the kingdom of God on earth, began to educate me in the administrative principles of the faith in spite of my own desires. When I returned to America, I went directly to the National Convention and arrived during the reading of that very message from the beloved guardian, which he had given me to read in Haifa. I found myself called to the front, and the words that I spoke came from some deep well of consciousness. That afternoon's walk with Shorki Effendi and those exalted statements heard from no less a person than Abdu'l-Baha's successor were like seeds that dear teacher had implanted in my mind and heart, and now each one was bursting forth into expression of these new ideas. And later, wherever I went, I found that the friends had received that same letter, and that they and the members of the spiritual assemblies were busily engaged in discussing it. Sometimes there were clashes of thought and misunderstanding, and these I found I had been prepared by the beloved guardian to explain and throw light upon. I had been given by him that which was necessary for the service and advancement of the cause, and not that which would satisfy only my own selfish desires. And that's the first amazing incident. The second one is, she says, many members of my family were Christian clergymen. My father himself was a Lutheran minister. It is a custom among Christians that when a member of the family passes away, he is laid to rest in his coffin and before the lid is closed, those attending the funeral and the members of the family were allowed to have a last look at the deceased loved one and pay their final homage. I remember that I was a small child when my father passed away, and I was taken to the coffin to have a last look at him. I stood there and peeped into the coffin, and this incident remains vivid in my mind. During my first pilgrimage, one night, I dreamt that I was in the very same position, but that my father arose in his coffin as if awaking. This frightened me so much that I woke up very perplexed. The next day, I was to meet the guard, the greatest holy leaf, and no one can imagine the condition I was in at the prospect. It was no joke for a humble, significant creature like myself to enter the presence of the daughter of the King of heaven and earth. She immediately, with her loving and keen insight, understood the great agitation I was in. She very gently asked me how I was. Did I sleep well? But not once did I think of my dream. Tea was served, and what a delicious feast, but I was still in the same disturbed state. As I was drinking my tea, she asked me, "Did you have a dream?" She asked me a second time, and suddenly I remembered my dream and told her about it. She smiled and said, "Of course, your faith in this cause has brought your father back to life again." The third incident is the following. My husband was not a Baha'i, but after 2 or 3 days of my pilgrimage, he became so enthralled with love for the guardian that one day, while looking at the new and completed building of the Western Pilgrim House, he became angry and exclaimed, "How can the Baha'is see an unfinished building every day in front of the guardian's eyes? You will see that the building is brought to completion." So the note says, Millie, joined by 7 other Baha'is, contributed the funds needed to complete the Western Pilgrim House, for which in December 1925, the Guardian expressed his heartfelt and abiding gratitude. Mr. Collins was also honored by being able to meet the greatest holy leaf and other members of the household. He was a very sociable man. He would take part of any discussion with perfect freedom and ease. But before entering the master's house, he was so excited that he arranged his tie and smoothed his clothes and repeatedly asked me what he should do. Sorry, Eileen, pause is coming in. He would take part in any discussion with perfect freedom and ease. But before entering in the master's house, he was so excited that he arranged his tie and smoothed his clothes and repeatedly asked me what he should do when we arrived there. I replied, "Nothing. In the family of Abdu'l-Baha, simplicity reigns and nothing but love is ever accepted." When we entered the room, we found the greatest holy leaf sitting in a chair and all the ladies of the household standing reverently and politely around her. We both sat in front of her. Tea was served. Conversation was short and simple. The dignity, the simplicity of the greatest holy leaf and the atmosphere created by her spiritual station so overwhelmed Tom that he was tongue-tied. Even after we were outside the house, he was absolutely quiet for a long time. And when he did open his mouth, he spoke only words of praise of her and concerning his own astonishment and wonder. In the fourth incident, she said, "The beloved guardian had advised me always to be as kind and loving to my husband as possible. I tried always to follow this advice, nor did I ever disobey Tom. For his sake, I stopped having meetings in my home and even going to meetings. As time passed, gradually his heart changed and he allowed me to attend meetings and to hold 19-day feasts in our own home, but he never became a Baha'i in this world." On one of our trips to Europe in 1937, he passed away on board ship. I had to take his body back to the US. At this bitter moment of my life, I received such a bounty from the guardian that all my sorrow came to an end. Here is the message which the guardian sent to Millie at this time. It says, greatly distressed sudden passing beloved husband, heart overflowing tenderest sympathy, offering special prayers, advising Geyserville Summer School, all befitting memorial, gathering recognition, generous support their institution. May beloved aid him attain goal he was steadily approaching closing years of his life. Not long after, when Millie again visited Haifa, the beloved guardian told me, your husband is in the presence of the master and is proud of your services. The guardian reiterated the same thought a few years later with even greater emphasis. How pleased the beloved must be, how proud he must feel of your truly great achievements. The soul of dear Mr. Collins must exult and rejoice in the upper kingdom, persevere and be happy. He also wrote to her, the days you spent under the shadow of the holy shrines will long be remembered with joy and gratitude. After returning from this trip, Millie was not the same person as before. Though encircled by many family problems, she was confirmed to perform such great and distinguished services that the beloved guardian not only called her an outstanding benefactress of the faith, but addressed her as dearly beloved sister and dear and prized co-worker. You know, as you'll read or you'll find out, she has made major contributions to the fund of this faith. Basically, I don't think anybody did as much as she has done with her estate. And for herself, she just lived very simply, even basic things she didn't really take care of. So only the guardian counted in her life, the guardian, and what the guardian wanted and his happiness. And all that she contributed was for the faith and for the guardian. And this she did non-stop for probably over 20 years. After returning, over the years, in the many letters he wrote to Millie, Shoki Effendi prepared her to fulfill her destiny, assured her of her spiritual progress, and forecast her elevation to the higher rank she would attain. For example, in the early years of his guardianship, he appended in his own hand such precious sentiments as these. My spiritual sister, I never cease praying for you from the bottom of my heart and wish you success in the glorious work that lies before you. It is our duty and privilege to translate the love and devotion we have for our beloved cause into deeds and actions that will be conducive to the highest good of mankind. Shoki. In the year 1926, the guardian started his guardianship. My dear and precious fellow worker, your steadfastness in service, your selflessness and devotion in the work you are engaged in greatly encourage me and inspire me in my work. Your many services, past and present, will ever be remembered with praise, gladness, and gratitude. Continue your magnificent endeavors for the propagation of the Baha'i faith. And remember always that in me, you have a grateful, loving, admiring brother who will never cease to pray for you. From the bottom of his heart, Shoki. This is a series of letters from her, and through the letters, you can see what she did accomplish for the faith. So in that same year, he wrote to her again, my dearly beloved sister in the cause. I am inexpressibly touched by this further evidence of your spontaneous and self-sacrificing devotion. I will devote your generous donation to promote such interests of the cause as are most vital and nearest and dearest to my heart. Your bright and shining example is, I am certain, acclaimed and glorified by the Supreme Concourse in the Upper Kingdom. And in this world below, you have undoubtedly earned the affection and the admiration of us all with deepest and truest love to my unforgettable friend and brother, Mr. Collins, your grateful brother, Shoki. In 1940, he writes again, dear and prized co-worker, I cannot refrain from adding a few words in person as a further token of my true and abiding appreciation of the ceaseless and most touching evidences of your wonderful devotion to the cause of God and the immense support you have extended and are still extending to its diverse and evolving institutions, locally, nationally, and internationally. How blessed, how pleased the beloved must be, your true and grateful brother Shaki. And another letter, he says, dearly beloved co-worker, I was deeply touched by your letter and by the assurances you have so lovingly and spontaneously given me for your eagerness to demonstrate your great love for our beloved cause. For my part, I can unhesitatingly assure you that you have amply and nobly and in different fields and over a long period of time revealed the true character of your faith and the depth of your devotion to the cause and its manifold institutions. You should rest assured and with radiant happiness and reverent gratitude persevere in the path you are treading with such zeal, determination, and loyalty. I will pray for you with redoubled fervor, your true and grateful brother Shoki. Now, I mean, just a parenthesis because it may come up in the tribute. I don't know because it comes up in the in memoriam. She never really dealt much with all the contributions she made, but she has apparently contributed to everything you can think of, from travel teachers, national Baha'i centers, contributions to the houses of worship around the world, to the construction of the superstructure of the mausoleum of the Bab, through the land where the Mashriq al-Athkar is going to be in Haifa, in Mount Carmel, and on and on and on. And they are major contributions. I mean, the estate that she was managing, that must be immense, but all of it was given to the Guardian all the time. And you will see, maybe there's going to be details of it in this particular tribute, although you find them in more detail if you read the in memoriam article. In 1942, he says, dear and prized co-worker, your journey to South America in these days of stress, of uncertainty and peril, in order to lend further assistance to the sacred, the vital, and manifold interests of our beloved faith, is a fresh and compelling demonstration of the devotion and zeal that characterize your activities in the service. Your exemplary, generous contribution on my behalf to the teaching fund at this critical hour is a still further evidence of your unfading solicitude for its extension and development. I am deeply touched and profoundly grateful. My constant and fervent prayers surround you in your historic and arduous journey, and I pray that the beloved may guide every step you take and fulfill every hope you cherish for the advancement of the cause and the glory and consolidation of its institutions. Your true and grateful brother, Shoki. She suffered a lot from arthritis. She was always in pain, for years and years and years. And in spite of all that, she always just moved and served and met with institutions. And of course, you will see eventually the rank she attained. In 1945, Sheikh Effendi wrote, dear and valued co-worker, the work you have achieved in recent years is truly highly meritorious. The reports sent by the believers eloquently testify to its character and significance. I feel truly proud of what you are achieving in so many fields and with such remarkable results. You should feel so happy, assured and thankful, for the beloved is well pleased with you. Persevere in your labors. Your true and grateful brother Shoki. And in 1946 came the words of encouragement. Dear and valued co-worker, I am deeply grateful to you as I witness on every side and on an ever increasing scale the evidences of your solid achievements, your exemplary spirit, your marvelous activity, your beneficent influence and magnificent labors for the propagation and consolidation of our glorious faith. My admiration for you grows every day, and I supplicate continually our beloved to bless, sustain, and guide you always, and aid you to win still might your victories. Your true and grateful brother Shoki. From these letters, it is evident that our precious Millie was very close to the beloved Guardian's heart. Wherever the Guardian was, she would write letters to Abdu'l-Baha, and answers would come in accordance with his instructions. Often Millie desired to know only whether or not he was in good health. Sometimes special missions were given to Millie by the guardian, and she, without any ostentation, with great humility and single-hearted devotion, would attend to the work he had entrusted to her and report to him confidentially. From some of the guardian's letters written in the 1940s, we can understand that she accomplished great services of a unique and exalted character. She was indeed a heroine because of such services, her achievements being due to her great love for and complete obedience to the beloved guardian, her vigilance and immediate response to do what was his heart's desire. Thus, she received honors attained by no one else. She preserved all the signs of bounty and grace in the treasure house of her heart and did not reveal them to anyone. After the bitter grief of the guardian's passing, these pearls filled her whole existence with light and assurance. Let us ponder the following letter from the guardian to Millie, written in 1947. Dear and prized co-worker, with a heart overflowing with profound gratitude, I'm now writing you these few lines to reaffirm the sentiments expressed lately on several occasions and in a number of telegrams of heartfelt and unqualified admiration for your magnificent services, rendered in circumstances so exceptional and difficult as to make them doubly meritorious in the sight of God. You have acquired yourself of the rank. You have acquitted yourself of the rank I felt prompted to impose upon you in a manner that deserves the praise of the concourse on high. The high rank you now occupy, and which no Baha'i since the Master's passing has ever held in his own lifetime, has been conferred solely in recognition of the manifold services you have already rendered, and is by no means intended to be a stimulus or encouragement in the path of service. Indeed, the character of this latest and highly significant service you have rendered places you in the category of the chosen nine, who, unlike the other hands of the cause, are to be associated directly and intimately with the cares and responsibilities of the guardian of the faith. I feel truly proud of you and drawn closer to you, and admire more deeply than ever before the spirit that animates you. May the beloved reward you both in this world and the next for your truly exemplary achievements. Gratefully and affectionately, Shoki. I have to read the letters because if they were not so important, Hand of the Cause Faith would not have written them, he would not have quoted them. So later that year, he says, dear and prized co-worker, the memory of the services, assistance, and support you extended to me in my hour of anxiety and stress a year ago, at this time, is still vivid and evokes my deepest admiration and gratitude. Your services in other fields and in the course of many years have moreover served to deepen my feelings of affection and gratitude for so distinguished a handmaid of Baha'u'llah and Hand of the Cause. Gratefully and affectionately, Shoki Effendi. Apparently, he named her Hand of the Cause before was announced officially a bit years later, and she never mentioned that. In 1949, the guardian addressed Millie. He says, dear and prized co-worker, I greatly welcome the splendid opportunity you now have of contributing your share, substantial and abiding, I'm confident it will be, to the progress of the faith and the edification of the believers in Great Britain, Poland, Switzerland, and Germany. I have already informed the German and British National Assemblies that I'm sure the friends will be delighted to meet you and will be greatly stimulated by the news you will impart to them as a result of your wide experience, and particularly by the spirit which so powerfully animates you in the service of beloved faith. This latest journey you undertake for the spread and consolidation of the faith at such important European centers constitute another chapter of the truly remarkable and outstanding record of your eminent international services to the cause of God. The International Center of the Faith and the subsidiary institutions are greatly indebted to you for your superb accomplishments. May the beloved, whom you serve so diligently, so devotedly, and with such distinction, abundantly bless your high endeavors and enable you to realize in whatever field you labor and at the very stage of your journeys, the dearest wish of your heart. Your true and grateful brother Shoki. Following year, another letter from the Guardian. Dear and valued co-worker, I am deeply touched by the repeated evidences of your self-sacrificing labors, exertions, and services to our beloved faith during these momentous days at so critical an hour in the fortunes of mankind and at so significant a stage in its worldwide evolution and unfoldment of the cause of God. Your share in consolidating its diverse institutions and its world center in the North American continent, in Latin America, and in Europe is indeed memorable and outstanding. I will associate your very generous contributions for the Shrine of the Bab with the memory of dear Mr. Collins, whose soul would no doubt rejoice and increasingly progress as a direct result of the historic services you have rendered for so long and so devotedly to the cause of Baha'u'llah. He surely must feel proud of you. The beloved is highly pleased with the standard of your achievements and I'm profoundly grateful for all that you have accomplished for the spread and establishment of his cause. You should be extremely happy for having been so abundantly blessed in your high and meritorious endeavors. Your true and grateful brother Shoki. In 1956, a year before Shoki Effendi passed away, dear and prized co-worker, I will devote part of your very generous contribution to the purchase of a few Chinese and Japanese cabinets, panels, and ornaments for the International Archives now nearing completion, the exterior and interior of which will, to a very marked extent, be associated for all time with your munificent support of the rising institutions of the faith and its world center. I'm sure you will be highly pleased, and the spirit of dear Mr. Collins will rejoice in the upper kingdom, your true and grateful brother Shoki. And finally, dear and prized co-worker, I'm deeply touched by these repeated evidences of your great devotion, your unfailing solicitude, and above all, the shining spirit of self-sacrifice that prompts you to make these munificent donations for the promotion of the faith at its world center. I'm anxiously waiting for the removal of obstacles that prevent you from attaining your heart's desire. I am looking forward very eagerly to the time we will be able to meet again in the Master's home, affectionately and gratefully, Shoki. Millie often said that she knew very little about the writings. This is Hand of the Co speaking. She said she knew very little about the writings, but loved to listen to the tablets and prayers and to hear the stories of the early days of the cause. Out of the immense treasury of all the writings, she said, I memorized one sentence and did my utmost to follow that one injunction. It served as a lamp of guidance, shedding light on the dark and obscure paths of my life. That phrase is from the Will and Testament of the Master, where he says that the friends should make Shoki Effendi happy. Whatever step I took in my life, any vote cast in the assemblies, any trip taken, even any thought, I would first and ask myself whether my vote, words, trip, or thought would make him happy. When I was sure, then I would take action without fear. When in 1925, for the first time, she became a member of the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of the United States and Canada, she found herself very young in the cause, sitting with all the accomplished and learned friends. But her initial fears were soon overcome, and for many years she contributed greatly to the consultations of that important body. A letter from the beloved Guardian in 1941, through secretary, no doubt, had reference to this and her many administrative services. It comforts him greatly to know that you are in position to help watch over and safeguard the interests of the cause and the believers. Your calm sanity, your great faith and devotion are assets of outstanding value to the faith, especially at present. She was a member of the National Spiritual Assembly for 20 years and was always vigilant to tread the path guided by the pleasure and wishes of the Guardian. If we look around the Baha'i world, we shall be amazed to note her achievements. Her contributions made possible the purchase of temple sites, Haziratul Quds, endowment lands, the translation and publication of books, the support of pioneers in America, the Hawaiian Islands, the islands of the South Pacific, Europe, Africa, All were sustained by her generous yet unknown gifts. Many a pioneer received her support without knowing it, the fact only to be revealed after her passing. These services were rendered either directly or completed by Millie or by sharing contributions with others. It is to be noted that with something of awe that this handmaiden of the Lord in her later years, aching with arthritis, endeavored to so earnestly and perpetually to participate in laying the foundations of so many pillars of the divine institutions, raised in the name of Baha'u'llah throughout the world. All these services were performed with complete love and detachment, sacrificed from any ostentation, sanctified from any ostentation, and in perfect order to the last moment of her life. Here we must emphasize 2 points. First, Millie herself never mentioned anything about her generous contributions to the faith. Many of them made directly to the beloved guardian. Even after his passing, many of these activities were continued as she had arranged for them to be, and they were kept confidential as was her wish. The hands of the cause in Haifa came to know about some of them through receiving the minutes of the National Spiritual Assemblies sent to them from all over the world. Whenever Millie would offer a contribution at a meeting of the Hands of the Cause, she would urge us to keep it confidential. Just send the money, she would say, don't mention my name. Secondly, Millie's eyes were wide open and always bright with longing to see where in the Baha'i world the friends were confronted with immeasurable difficulties and in teaching, pioneering, or any other field of activity. At such moments, she would say, if the guardian were alive, he would never like to see this task finished. I'm ready to help, but please don't mention my name. We need more souls like Millie, dedicated, sensitive, and pure. Is there any better way to serve the cause than to have one's own will, desires, and wishes wholly dissolved in the will of God? Can we find anywhere a soul purer than hers and a heart more brimful with divine love? She submerged herself in the ocean of the guardian's love. She was both generous and shrewd. She never plunged her hands in her pocket to pour out money at random. She was never moved to take any step, and she was sure that every penny would be passed along in the channels advised by the guardian. She did not spend money to please herself. That was not Millie. Her whole aim and purpose was to see her beloved happy and relieved of cares. And when she took a step, she never expected or wanted to receive acknowledgement and praise, much less any public announcement. In her personal habits, she was thrifty. She would every now and then go to her clothes cupboard and choose a dress that had been set aside for some reason, and this she would shorten or adjust to make it more in fashion. When I knew her in Haifa, she lived in a small room which had previously been occupied by Mr. Maxwell, the father of Rohia Khanum, in the utmost contentment and joy because it was a room in the master's house under the same roof as her beloved Shoki Effendi. Once she said that the very first time she saw that divine countenance and beheld those beautiful and expressive eyes, so full of eagerness and expectation, she realized that the divine youth was surrounded by many immeasurable, insurmountable hardships and sorrows. His sorrows dwelt in the depths, the very depths of his youthful and loving heart, and he trod the path of suffering, as did Baha'u'llah and Abdu'l-Baha before him, in quietude and patience. In this look, she could clearly discern his need for love and cooperation from those who claimed to love him. And she said, having sensed these heavenly traces in his gracious manner, his expectant eyes, and his selfless tone of voice, she felt a poignant ache in her heart in response to this need. This pain grew into something that changed her life and her attitude towards him. It was so strong and mysterious, she said, that she could never presume to mention it to the guardian. One day after his passing, she said to us, you know, I had never had the joy of having a child. Therefore, in my heart and soul, I adopted him as my own son. And in the world of faith and spirit, enthroned him in the throne of certitude, where he reigned as the sole sovereign of my soul, the ruler of my destiny and the fashioner of my life. In whatever direction he willed, I will go, with the utmost joy and assurance. In her daily life, dearest Millie demonstrated this love and faith. Everyone could feel it in the increasing momentum and power of her services and her integrity. In the light of this love, she remained radiant and glowing. In its consuming flame, she stood steadfast with a courageous heart that beat with unprecedented acquiescence. After the passing of the beloved guardian, this love became ever more intense. It was as if she could no longer remain alone in this world. We could almost hear the sorrowful songs of separation as she spoke with words of intense longing for reunion with him. We could behold the fire of her love burning brighter day by day. The friends should never for a moment misunderstand or think that the cause of such a close and loving relationship was ever due to the large and numerous contributions that she regularly offered at the threshold of his love. That which made her unique was the selflessness and purity of soul and sincere intention with which she offered her wealth to her beloved to assist him in accomplishing what was dearest to his heart, the progress of the faith. There is a large and beautiful wrought iron gate, gilded gate, at the beginning of the path leading to the shrine of Baha'u'llah. The symbol of the greatest name surmounts it, and it is called the Collins Gate. When the pilgrims approach the shrine of the Supreme Manifestation of God, they pass through this main gate, which silently stands as a loving remembrance of the one who adored the guardian of the faith, Shaykh Effendi, grandson of Abdu'l-Baha and great-grandson of Baha'u'llah. This gate has a touching story connected with it that goes back to the years of Millie's childhood. This is what she told us. As I have said, sometimes I would make a humble offering to Shaykh Effendi. One time I sent him a sum of money and begged that it not be used for institutions of the faith or for teaching or pioneering, but in some way for himself. This humble request was expressed frankly and lovingly, with, one might venture to say, the yearning of a mother's heart. To such request, the guardian would usually reply with a message to the effect that his personal needs were few and limited. This message would be conveyed with such tenderness that Millie never found words to express the feelings that overwhelmed her. But let us go back to the story of the gate. Ever since my childhood, I had wanted a gate. Even when I was very small and used to build little houses for my dolls, I would try to make a gate for the doll's house. I used little bars of iron and other scraps, but none satisfied my longing. When we built a home in New England, Tom asked me about a gate. I said to him, Tom, I do not want to put the money into a gate now, but nothing could satisfy that deep longing of mine. About this time, I embraced the faith and forgot about this desire of mine. I had no thought anymore for worldly things. After my husband died and I had been called to Haifa to serve, I offered the beloved guardian a contribution and expressed the hope that the sum be used for his personal needs. Time passed, and one day I received a letter from the Shaykh Effendi. It contained a photograph of a gigantic and very beautiful gate, and a note asking me how I liked it, and informing me it had been purchased with the money I had offered him. Immediately, I sent a message to him saying, exceedingly beautiful. One night, when some pilgrims were present at the table in the Western Pilgrim House, William Foster was among them. In his love for the guardian, he expressed the wish to be of some service while he was on pilgrimage. He was a builder and contractor by profession. The beloved asked him if he could build a gate, and Bill replied with the greatest delight that he most certainly could. The guardian then said he planned to erect the Collins Gate in the Haram al-Aqdas. The Haram al-Aqdas is the shrine of Baha'u'llah and the surrounding area. This was the first time that Millie heard this expression. At that tender moment, as she gazed at the beloved guardian, the sign of God on earth, who knew her inmost longing, Millie told us, he knew that my life had no worth except to offer it at his bidding. At any moment, he responded to my look with a heavenly smile. The Baha'is know that in the last years of his life, Baha'u'llah made several visits to Haifa. On one of these, he went to the extreme western end of Mount Carmel. It is the head of the mountain in whose heart rests the shrine of the Baha. The head is indeed beautifully situated. It is a promontory jutting northward westward into the blue Mediterranean, and the sun rising on one side of it sets on the other. It was while Baha'u'llah was visiting this part of the mountain that he revealed the tablet of Carmel in the vicinity of one of the famous caves where it is claimed the Prophet Elijah lived. It is interesting, in view of the later events, that the Guardian sent Millie and her husband to visit that historic site during her first pilgrimage. Many years later, Sheikh Effendi very much wished to purchase a piece of land, the highest spot on this prominent promontory, lest it be irretrievably lost to the faith. His intention was that the future house of worship in the Holy Land should be erected there. Millie never took any action unless and until she knew definitely that it was the Guardian's desire. As soon as she knew this was his plan, she begged him to allow her to donate the money for his purchase. This request was granted. She said that if she had ever received any reward in this transient life, this was it. On the day that the transactions for the purchase of this land were completed, she was in her room in the master's house when suddenly someone knocked at the door and informed her that the Guardian was waiting for her in his car in front of the house. The purpose of that unprecedented drive was the explanation bountifully given to her about the temple site by the Guardian himself. Whatever Millie had offered, in whatever way and for whatever institution, her acts had all been from sheer love. Never did she expect or wish that what she did should be proclaimed. However, when the Guardian announced her gift of land to the temple site, she explained to us, "Who was I say a word?